I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Cameron Smith.
This is the one that I've always wanted to win since I was a little kid. So it just feels pretty amazing to be able to get it done today.
It's amazing that it's my destiny to be the first Aussie to win. Just incredible.
Hello and welcome to episode 110 of the Playing from the Tips podcast, the look ahead at the world of professional golf and all of its offerings, some tips, insights and nonsense, all presented by Golf Australia magazine. Jimmy Emanuel here again in the host seat as we travel around the PGA Tour, LIV Golf League, LPGA and Asian Tour with all the course and field details as well as our so-called experts' best bets of the week. The first of those so-called experts has revolutionised the Sydney podcasting space simply by adding a piece of timber to the top of the desk, while also being the most aggrieved man in Australia that he couldn't watch the Hainan Classic last week. Welcome, Rod Murray.
Thank you very much. I brought the nonsense. Who's got the insights? I've got nonsense covered.
Notable silence there.
Looking fairly thin on the ground beyond that, isn't it?
No idea. We really need some visuals to go along with this podcast so people can know what you're talking about with a piece of timber on top of a desk.
Correct. But
we've made some allusions to it.
You've kind of undersold it, really.
Microphone arm last week.
Left behind in that podcast revolution and still using a microphone arm he can't stand, we welcome Aria Jatanagarn's chipping coach, Adrian Logue.
Oh,
nasty.
I don't know if it's nastier to you or Aria, to be fair. When I wrote it, I was not sure.
We haven't played in a while, Jimmy, but in the last couple of games, have you seen me duff a chip that bad?
No, but you've overcome it. That's why she's going to seek you out for advice, because you've had similar issues.
Yeah. Have to be better than the bloke that was
patch together our games in whatever means we have to, Jimmy, and I've done what I needed to do. Aria needs to do what she needs to do if she wants to.
You're Rory like these days. It's covered
apparently.
last week.
So apparently. Speaking of Aria and what is best left not spoken about probably for her in the final stages of the Chevron last week, highlights, lowlights of last week, and I think based off our group text there's probably quite a few.
Well, she's not the only one, is she? All five of those players could prosecute a case against themselves that they threw that tournament away. All five of them. But I think Ronnie Yin the most. That three-putt was unforgivable. And now we find out if she'll be able to forgive herself. It won't be easy, I wouldn't think.
She had to sit and watch everybody just throw it away right in front of her. And then she stepped up to that putt. She had a long time to think about it.
Oh, 100%. We can all understand. We're all golfers, we understand what's happened there.
From hitting the shot, waiting. Were there any rulings as well? Because, boy, there were some rulings on that 18th and the final day. And then, it must have been 10, almost 15 minutes between hitting that incredible shot and then having to hit that putt. And then, she just blew it past.
Yeah. It looked like there was a force field around that 18th green.
The bigger issue, though, was, to give the player
congratulations to Mao Saigo.
Absolutely.
No,
she deserved
it. And she's the one who holed that putt that Jatanagar missed twice and Ronnie Yin missed
Here's
the
the examination, who can pass it,
putt,
and she passed.
And then she did the best chip as well. Of that chip that everybody had to do.
But broadly, that tournament has got some problems. It's just awfully flat. There's no criticism. Jeff Shackelford wrote about this in his quadrilateral this week. If you don't subscribe to that, it is well worth it. Nothing to do with the people who run the tournament, do all the organising and all that, but it has a real problem there. I've never seen a flatter major, and hasn't improved in 3 years.
No.
No crowds, no buzz, no atmosphere. You could make a case for all sorts of reasons for it, but clearly the venue doesn't work either as a golf course. It played really funky yesterday, super soft in front of the greens, rock hard greens. It was borderline impossible. No wonder the players were, toast by the time they got to the 18th. It was just a brutal test, and it's a real shame. The players deserve better and the LPGA deserves better.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's a tournament we spoke about last week where it had an identity. It wasn't for everyone's flavour, the golf course and everything about it, but it had an identity and everyone knew what it was and when it was. It's lost that identity and it hasn't gained a new one.
Created a new one.
And the golf course is still proving to be probably not quite there in terms of major championship standard.
It's a long way off. And there's no way they can ever make that golf course be what it needs to be.
No. And I think maybe a period of time ago on the LPGA Tour when they didn't play as many good golf courses, it could have. But now the LPGA Tour plays some genuine, and particularly
Especially
at the majors.
That's exactly right.
They go and play some of the best golf courses in America and in the UK as well. It's such a standout. This is different to the rest. And then you combine it with a few other, slow play again for the LPGA. Is such an issue that is just not being addressed, and it's at the detriment of the entire tour. And it's not the entire tour doing it.
They're at least pretending to do something, the LPGA, whereas the PGA Tour just pretend that it doesn't exist. So I'll give them that. And listen, the LPGA have been much more proactive than the PGA Tour. They penalised a girl in the final round of a major when she was near the lead 15 years ago. Brazilian girl, I can't remember her name. Annika went on to win. It was like on the 10th tee Sunday. They walked up and said, 2 shots. It was like... Okay, then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the final group was on the clock for the last 9 holes, weren't they?
When's the last time you heard of a men's group being on the clock?
Yeah.
Especially at a major.
And that must have had some sort of impact on Jatanagarn as well.
But all that
because, of the 3 players who are on the clock in that final group, one of them did not care at all.
Yeah.
Like just
name names. Carlotta Saganda is a horrendously
so slow,
player.
and then she wasn't in contention, and then she continued to grind it out.
Yeah.
Frustratingly, like just let the stage, like leave the stage.
You'd have to make the same one. I like her, but Hey Yan Yu was a bit the same coming down there, and it was well and truly over her and calling for rulings and all that faffing about on the 18th green. In all honesty, do everyone a favour. It doesn't matter whether you finished 12th or 15th.
Yeah.
Chip the thing on the green and get out of the way. That was a little bit rude, I think.
And I think that's part of the greater issue of the lack of external engagement with this event as a major significant event. And yes, there's a responsibility to media and everything to cover it because, elevate the coverage and everything like that. That's definitely not occurring as much as it should, but the tournament itself and everything about it is struggling in that way. And I think we can almost be done with the pond, given we've nearly had a drowned major champion.
Hopefully
10
that's the
minutes
end of
after
it.
she wins.
I've never been comfortable with that whole thing. I just think it's a bad look. And
Well, it's just such a stupid tradition. Imagine if they kept doing it after the first year of the players at Sawgrass.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
As if they'd kept doing it, they'd be like,
Exactly.
no, just stop it. Didn't Thomas LeVay bust his shin?
Yeah, he broke his leg.
Jumping into the
into
water
the
at
Golf National.
The Golf National. It's like, just stop it.
There was an injury to one of the players' mums or something.
Oh, yes, that's right. Broken arm.
Yeah,
last year, the year before.
or a couple of years ago. There's been players like the old pond at the Poppy's Pond had its tradition, whatever. But I think it was Pat Hurst who waded in there because she couldn't swim.
Couldn't swim.
There was a couple others, but this was like near diabolical stuff. Like you can't have that going on.
Why would you let people jump in the water who can't swim? Why would people who can't swim line up to jump in the water?
And they dredged that lake and they did all this sort of stuff to make it possible. And it's for something that happened somewhere else to try and maintain something.
Jimmy, we've got the solution. You know that. You merge this tournament with the founders.
Correct.
You call it the Players by the founders, and you play it at TPC Sawgrass.
That'd be amazing.
And you go back to 4 major championships that have unique identities.
Yeah.
And
3 of them very strong. The
the players who won it still have it as a major championship as a major when they played it. But
point out, nobody's taking anything away from Mao Saigo or anybody who's the players are doing their job. They're playing the best golf they can, but
and
they're being let down.
To them, they've won a major.
Absolutely, they
correct.
Well, not just to them, they have won a major.
They've won a major.
Absolutely.
And yeah, but I think I'm just giving a fan's perspective that I think I'm not. It's very hard to tune into that and be, especially there were sites on the TV where there was empty grandstands
100%.
behind the final group.
yeah.
How does that happen in a major? It's outrageous.
Elsewhere, Joaquin Niemann wins again and
I told you that last week.
and becomes the first player to earn a major championship start through LIV Golf wins. There was a US Open.
Of course, because they all changed their regulations quite a bit,
Correct.
didn't they? Yeah.
And because of that win, he gets into the US Open.
Yeah, look, good on him.
So, without argument, the best player on LIV in LIV events.
100%.
Yes.
It's a
Well
pretty
said.
important little thing, but
100%.
he wins more, he plays the best, and
Well, it's such a shame that we're not seeing this period of his career unfold on the bigger stage, which is kind of where you feel like he deserves to be.
Did you pick him, Rod?
he
Yeah,
did.
of course I did.
Yeah, and we poo-pooed that.
Yeah, you did.
We did
Didn't
indeed.
You
We said,
really
no
did.
low ball flies.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he can handle Mexico.
Yep.
Well, I take it back.
Bryson, again, very impressive, but just not getting over the line. I don't know if that's a block or it's just he's competing at a high level without his absolute best.
I didn't watch. Did you watch it? I didn't. watch
I saw
any
a
of it.
little bit of it, yeah.
Did he throw it away?
No, not particularly, no.
I didn't say. I imagine he would have just bludgeoned at the course, just taking it over trees and all. And eventually, if you do that, even over 54 holes, you have to come unstuck at some point.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
I wonder if it is he's playing at a high level without his best stuff, and once it clicks a little bit more, he will go on, or if it's the other way, you don't know. But
Bryson, all of this stuff could just be practice for the majors.
Yep, correct.
In all honesty,
It could be.
Yeah.
He really
You almost
could just be.
think he doesn't necessarily want to waste wins,
Maybe
in a way.
Yeah.
Like,
And the only other thing worth mentioning is the Højgaards finished second, and Rod wanted nothing to do with them.
No, that's exactly
that's true.
right.
Yeah, you fumbled
it's
the
true.
ball there.
They did
I'm
fumble the
afraid.
ball there, so it's
That was
one
an
hole between
easy
the three of
top
us.
5 for you. I just want to say I'm a big Ben Griffin guy now. I like the cut of his jib.
Okay,
I saw
there
him
you go.
a few
How do you feel about
a few
Andrew
weeks ago. At the no, like there's nothing to see there.
Okay,
But Ben,
he's
He's a
teammate.
great judge
I
of
don't
horseflesh,
care.
isn't he? Finished runner-up the week before.
Andrew Novak just could be like there's a void of interest around him, but Ben Griffin,
Is there?
I think he sucks in the light around him. He's like so.
So-
Ben Griffin has something like
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
I saw him a few weeks ago at the Players when he was sort of thereabouts, and I was like, "Who's that?" Like he's got the sunnies and a bit of swagger, and then this week he really had some swagger, and he's worth watching.
He's
Watchable.
again.
Actually, no, he's watchable, and I'm setting a pretty low bar there, but he's watchable. Novak, not so watchable.
It's a kind of packed week of golf, and the Zurich probably suffers from it. They all suffer from it when they play like that, but the Zurich is a genuinely enjoyable event to watch most of the time. And
When there's no blackout and there's actual TV coverage.
Correct.
What a disaster
That's a
that
disaster.
was. That just can't happen.
No.
How does that happen? That just can't happen.
Wasn't there a fire or something under one of the TV trucks?
yeah,
or
something like that.
So
happened,
but the
yeah.
PGA
So
Tour
that
have
can't
taken
happen.
over the compound, have they not? And this is where the issue is. So they've taken responsibility for the TV compounds, I think, week to week, certainly at that event. So it was kind of their responsibility. You can't imagine that would have happened on Golf Channel's watch, or people who specialise in that industry would have all sorts of backup plans, you'd imagine. But anyway, yeah, that's a real shame.
Wrapping up last week, it was a bit of a unique effort for our tips. We recorded officially 3 top 10s and 1 win in Rod's Joaquin Neiman pick. But to my tally, we had 14 top 20s.
Wow.
How?
Like, just all of our tips pretty much finished in the top 20, but very few converted to the numbers we need for our stats.
Okay.
So
Players,
it means we're in form. So we're like Bryson.
We're doing our bit, but
We're on
players
the
aren't.
verge of potentially an unbelievable run. They, of course, don't count.
The top 20s don't count at all.
No, they don't count at all. But I'm
that's-
just saying, it's
But hang on.
Not
it's a
something to
form-
brag about,
It's a
Jimmy.
form indicator.
Okay.
It could be something to brag
It
about.
could be something to
You
brag
could
about.
create whatever league table
We
you
could
like.
change it.
Exactly.
We're in
It's
charge.
not even yellow in Wikipedia.
We're a nimble organisation.
We are.
We can change
anyway,
quickly.
We do still have 25 wins and 56 top 10s, which, Rod, are, of course, unrivaled numbers by podcast where multiple of the hosts regularly enjoy a jaffle after recording.
Confirmed.
Yes, indeed.
I think we may be the only podcast where there's a jaffle on the plate afterwards. But
We might have to
And no
get
biscuits
Jaffle.
today or donuts, so you'll be needing a jaffle.
Yeah. Indeed.
Jaffle.
already been
I'm already
commented
thinking
on.
jaffle. Yeah. On we go to this week's golf, and we're going to lead with the PGA Tour and the CJ Cup Byron Nelson that you have some information on it for us, Rod.
Like some sort of fusion meal, isn't it?
It is.
CJ Cup with Byron Nelson, and very disappointing amount of respect showed to Byron Nelson by the PGA Tour, frankly, since he died in 2006. This tournament has
disrespect to the CJ Cup
I know, bow
at
down.
9 Bridges.
CJ's putting in money. Byron Nelson's not putting in anything,
No.
so you know where the respect goes. Here's a nugget which I did not know until today. Peter Thompson's only PGA Tour victory came in this event in 1956. He beat Carrie Middlecoff and Gene Littler in a 2-hole playoff.
Didn't we used to have better names?
Oh, the names.
That's
So
I know
good.
that was one of the most impressive things
Yeah.
about. Well, it was Dr. Carrie Middlecoff, wasn't it?
Was Dow Finsterwall
Dow
thereabouts
Finsterwall.
as well? He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
one of the top
I didn't
5.
see him in the results. He wasn't in the playoff, but
How good.
yeah.
That is quite remarkable. But
Yeah, Peter Thompson. In fact, if you'd asked me, I would have guessed that he probably won once or twice on the PGA Tour, but I wouldn't have known. But he did win once, and it was here. So
And yet another Australian to win in Texas.
another Australian to win in Texas. Yeah, it's a good point.
Thank you.
Good point. That was at the Preston Hollow Golf Club. It's not there anymore. It's at TPC Craig Ranch, and the clue here is in the title: TPC. This is TPC golf course. The tour owns it. It's a housing development. It's designed for a certain thing. Originally a Weiskopf design, opened in 2004, Tom Weiskopf. And he does pretty well, Tom. He's got he's had some really good designs around the place. This probably isn't one of his best because it wasn't one of the best pieces of land. However, that hasn't been helped by major renovation going on by Lanny Watkins. So the scoring the last couple of years, been since 2021, 26 under I think is the lowest, but it's always been 23, 24. It's a low scoring course because it's kind of, so you assume they're trying to stop that because they've added 150 yards to the course, they've shifted a bunch of bunkers, added some trees, narrowed the fairways, changed the grass surfaces of both the fairways and the greens, and they've converted one of the par 5s to a par 4, and there's more in store before next year. So they're probably going to make the 18th hole instead of a par 5, they'll make it a tough par 4 because Lanny thinks that's what's exciting at a tournament, apparently, is that if a guy's got to make a par and it's a tough hole, that really gets the...
There's a real Maury Watkins
Lanny
thing here.
Watkins thing.
I'm just not sure where on the list you'd put Lanny Watkins to redo your golf course, particularly now having seen that his genius ideas were, well, let's make the fairways narrower, let's add some trees, move the bunkers and make them bigger and turn par 5s into par 4s.
Okay. I wasn't expecting a Lanny
No,
Watkins hatchet job.
Neither was I.
I don't think Lanny was either.
As excited as I was to find out that Peter Thompson had won this, I was equally disappointed to read all of that and then have to turn on Lanny publicly like this. So apologies, Lanny. Great player, but I'm not sure that we agree on golf course art.
Side note, Craig Ranch sounds like a vocational PGA member in America.
It
Don't you
really
reckon the
does,
head
doesn't
pro
it?
would
Head
be
professional
Craig Ranch?
Craig Ranch.
Or a sauce that you put on your...
Yeah, or
on
a
your-
type of
on
ranch
your- on his-
dressing. Yeah, of course. Continue.
After that, I don't think I can. As is Weiskopf's way, there's always a drivable par 4. It's the 14th on this course. Nothing about the course really stands out from what I could find, although the 5th hole has been lengthened this year. It's now a 630-yard par 5. That's 570 metres. Will we see anyone knock it on in 2? How long was the 18th at Erin Hills when 600 yards, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Justin Thomas hit a pair of 3 woods, if I'm not mistaken.
Epker, I think, got it on
He
the
did.
final round as well.
Yeah, but Thomas hit 3 wood off the tee and 3 wood into the green over 600 yards. So that tells you how far these guys actually do hit it. So we will see. Players to watch. Well, really, there's only one. Scotty Scheffler's playing, and that's kind of it. The only other top 20 ranked player in the world who's in the field is Sung Jae Im. Not a surprise, given that Masters was 2 weeks ago and you've got signature events and whatnot. So, I mean, Scheffler, clearly he wouldn't be playing if... I know it's Texas, he likes to play in his home state, but you wouldn't think he'd be playing if he doesn't want to win it. So that would be the most likely outcome you would think. Jordan Spieth is the other one who's playing, who's always exciting and always a chance. You already referenced the Højgaard twins from last week, who did play beautifully and really paired together beautifully. Rasmus is in the field this week, and I suspect he might get home at some point soon. There's no reason why this wouldn't be the sort of course where he might do that. Jake Knapp. There's a few others that finish high on the board.
I love Jake Knapp.
I like Jake Knapp too. I love his swing.
I saw a tweet of I'm ready to have the Jake Knapp for Ryder Cup discourse start,
Yeah.
and I'm right on board too.
Yeah, 100%.
His girlfriend McKenna, also one of the best follows on Twitter.
Is that right?
She's hilarious. In that sort of Claire Rogers kind of world, she's outstanding. So, yeah, get around Jake Knapp.
They're the sort of tidbits you don't get anywhere else.
Exactly right.
You need to start bringing
Jokes
that up
about
at the
Craig
start of the
Ranch
show.
and
That's exactly
that.
We're going to get an email from someone called Craig.
Oh,
Ranch.
yeah,
I guarantee
absolutely.
you. It's some.
Yeah.
And if he's the head pro at Quail Hollow Log, you're in real trouble after some of the comments you've made about that.
And a friend of Lanny Watkins.
If he's a friend of Lanny Watkins, that's it. We're over. Strange in the field, Aaron Baddeley, Cam Davis, Harrison Endicott, and Carl Phillips, Jimmy. This guy is really good. They finished second or third last week?
Third, I think, yeah. Him and Michael Theobald.
Yeah, he's really, really impressive.
He is.
He's going to bob up at some point and win something.
I don't even think he's quite reached his 12-month anniversary as a professional.
Yeah, extraordinary.
So, yeah.
And, well, you would know this, Jimmy, because we're working media.
That's unnecessary. Very sassy today.
Yeah.
There are a dime a dozen kids who are going to be the next big thing.
Of course.
There's hundreds of them, literally. And only a very few manage to navigate to the top. He is one of the standouts.
He is. Yeah.
He really is the goods. And it takes a long time for crusty old journos to be convinced, but this crusty old journo is convinced that this young man is a serious talent. No Jason Day, which is interesting. He won here in 2023.
Yeah, he played quite a lot in the first half of the first quarter.
This schedule's really messing with Fields, I feel like, with
Yeah.
signature events and all of this sort of stuff.
This run you get now in the lead up to, all the other 3 majors that come quick and thick and fast. And then you got playoffs and all that sort of stuff. It's a difficult thing to try and get your schedule and go to those places. And guys like Jason who've had good records at certain events or wins struggle to get back to those places.
Yeah. It's only getting harder making a schedule as a top player. It's a first world problem, obviously, but
Of course.
really managing that schedule. That's why I was interested to see Scheffler, because that means he's played Masters, RBC. He didn't play last week, did he?
No.
But then he's here this week.
I imagine he must have a run of off coming up, and then
Yeah. You'd think so. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah, Scotty Scheffler's my team. How can you?
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Actually, no, he's not.
Oh,
I'm getting back on Rasmus.
No, really?
Yeah, I think he might win this week.
okay. Low.
All right, so you thought about Scheffler.
I did think about, well, how could you not?
He more than.
It'd be like if he turned up.
said it.
If he turned up at one of your retro days, it'd be the same sort of thing. It's like, well, you've got a golfer and these monkeys.
Feels more like you were thinking about Rasmus and picking Scheffler, but you flipped it.
I was in two minds, but then at the last minute, I did flip it. A little bit
So
like
much
Ari
so,
with
I
that
just
chip.
wrote down his tip as Scheffler because I'm rattled. But officially, Rod is tipping Rasmus. Logue.
Sponsor this week, CJ, big Korean conglomerate.
I still
logistics
don't
and
really
food.
know what they do, but I know they're
food,
huge.
or
Yeah.
everything. Like they're
They're
everything. They're in everything.
They're in everything.
They're like Hyundai. They
like
make
Sydney
everything.
Podcast Studio.
And
They do
Samsung.
everything.
A couple of Korean hosted tournaments this week as well.
get to that.
I'm going to go with a Korean theme
Okay.
this week. So I'm starting that off. I thought about Sung Jae-im, but
Nice work.
I'm going with Tom Kim.
Okay.
Nice. I thought about Rasmus.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, quite deeply. I thought about Carl Phillips, in all honesty.
I
think
gave
he's,
you a
Yeah.
thought
I
too.
think he's going to probably win again
Yeah.
before the next
Agreed.
little run is done. But given Scheffler's on the board, I'm going to take Scotty Scheffler
Yeah.
because I'm not an idiot.
Well, you have for the team. You have to.
Exactly.
As a team, if someone's not on Scheffler, we've let ourselves down.
Yeah. Although I did that last week with Nelly, and she was one of our 14 top 20s.
Oh, just on that, what happened to the world's best players last week?
Oh, yeah.
None of them stood. None of them, literally. Hannah missed the cut, which I
Yeah.
couldn't believe.
How remarkable. Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that didn't help either, I suppose.
No. We keep moving, and as Logue has already mentioned, there's quite remarkably 2 tournaments in South Korea, just over 40 kilometres apart from each other, and both sort of in the world of the financial grandiose of the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. First, we're going to focus on is LIV Golf Korea at the Jack Nicklaus Golf Club in Incheon. But before we get too far into it, what do we make of they're playing an Asian Tour event that Logue will preview shortly, literally 42 or something kilometres to the west of where this venue is in the same week. Now, they're not the same fields. They use LIV players to strengthen Asian Tour fields. This event on the Asian Tour is one of its most historic and longest running. Does it not take away fans from one or the other? Does it not take away local media attention? Does it not take away global media attention?
What are the politics between the Korean Golf Association and LIV?
This is much more a Korean Golf Association
not an
event
Asian
than an
tour
Asian
event
Tour
per
event.
se,
It's an
so
Asian
that'd be a
sanctioned
part of it.
event. But
Here's the other thing, Jimmy, in the bigger picture, LIV might be the big winners out of the financial turmoil that we're seeing in America. They've got a fund of money that doesn't rely on the markets. The PGA Tour very much relies on the markets. And, if some of the worst predictions about what might happen to the economy in America come true, the PGA Tour are going to be in trouble, particularly given the boosting they've made to the purses over the last couple of years in response to LIV.
It was always felt unsustainable without,
100%.
you've got one FedEx in the world, really. Like
I
there's-
cannot see a schedule, anything like the current PGA Tour schedule, existing in 5 to 10 years. I just don't see how they can survive that double whammy of LIV plus what's potentially going to happen in those markets. Big shifts going on in the world of golf.
Which is remarkable because LIV still doesn't really capture the imagination
No, it doesn't.
at all. Like this stuff.
But once the PGA
Mexico
Tour
last
purses
week.
starts to drop or the schedule starts to change, it's the players who'll dictate.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, Rory won't go, but you'll probably get some other high. Well, he might, but that's what'll happen. The top players need to look for the place in the world where they can make the most money. That's their reward for what they do. If the PGA Tour is going down, that's what happened to that's how the PGA Tour became the PGA Tour. Once Tiger came along, all the top European Tour players, it was no longer a choice. If I could play in Europe or there and the money's not that much different, it's like, well, you've got to go to America. You don't have a choice. That's where all of the money is.
Anyway. It's a 2.5 hour train ride from one to the other, I can tell you.
Oh, is that right?
I looked it up last night.
Incheon's where the
So
airport
40
is, right?
kilometres.
Which is like 3 hours out of actual Seoul.
Yeah.
That's the main
Well, 'cause-
international.
yeah,
It's
where-
a city,
Seoul.
isn't it? Incheon?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's another area there that's a smart city. It's quite confusing. But anyway.
Didn't they build the golf course? Didn't they dredge all the water? And
Yeah.
They basically created the land that the golf course is built on?
2010, Jack Nicklaus Golf Club, and it's probably pretty familiar for a fair few people who watch a lot of golf. So 2015 President's Cup, LPGA's played the International Crown there. The DP World Tour's played, I think it was the Genesis Championship or something there at some stage. Fourth best golf course in South Korea.
Where does it rank on Jack Nicklaus's golf courses? Because we know the club at Carlton Woods was his 18th best ever golf course.
It's one of his 25 signature designs, so I imagine it's in his top 25.
What if it's better than 18?
I couldn't find that, but there's a bit more here. It's nearly 7,500 yards. Water's a key theme. There's a big rock wall that you probably remember. I think it's on the 4th hole. It's a short par 4, and there's a huge rock wall. The front
being
9,
a good golf course from memory.
yeah, it's pretty good. On the front 9, there's a bit more of the sort of dramatic sort of stuff that you remember, but maybe isn't as good at golf. Big white sand bunkering, well-maintained playing surfaces. It is a good golf course. The President's Cup there was
fascinating.
Really, really
Possibly
good.
the best President's Cup we've had.
Visually quite good. The backdrops were quite spectacular too.
Yeah, it's got a lot going for it. Sort of better ball strikers, again, suited here. Unsurprisingly, Jack Nicklaus design, signature design. Fade it, don't draw it, basically. That's the rule. If Jack's designed it, work it left to right off the tee and you're going to be better off. Interestingly, though, it's had more of a write-up on the LIV Golf website than any other host venue I have ever seen.
Is that right?
There's a whole page. It's got all this detail. I wonder if it's a change in editorial strategy or I think more,
Money.
No. I think it's a chance to align Jack Nicklaus, President's Cup, DP World Tour, all of these powers with what they're doing.
Or some kind of deal in golfing with the people of
LIV
interest.
never misses a trick. With things
That's
like
what
that,
because it's the Jack Nicklaus Golf Club, and it doesn't say throughout the copy Nicklaus. It's Jack Nicklaus for the Jack. It's Jack's views on LIV Golf are not positive. It's interesting. It just and
Was
there's
it a
a lot
good
of
piece? Bit about the course?
it's not so much of a flowing story as details and facts, but there's a lot in there which. We've criticised LIV with their coverage in the lead up to events of not having before, and they've done a very good job with it. So it's
At least we've got one listener.
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how their editorial stuff changes a little bit over time because it's all been so hyperbolic up until now. Like I think even last week in the lead up to the third round, the final round, they still had go with this headline, it's all to play for, which is just everything can't be all to play for.
The PGA Tour took a long time to adapt the way they covered their own golf and did all that sort of stuff and got better and better and better, and it was in a sweet spot before everything blew up. There was a lot more interesting sort of editorial
State
coverage.
media is hard to run.
Correct.
It is very hard to run media about your own
this is
organisation.
a very unique
becomes
situation.
cheerleading very quickly, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
You really have to have a brave leadership who understand what a media product is to have any chance of doing it, because the temptation is always to pull whatever lever suits your organisation best.
Yeah.
It's rarely the right one for the coverage of the game.
Correct. Player-wise, Neiman, we mentioned off the top, unquestionably the top LIV player in LIV events. When they go elsewhere, there's obviously a few others who stand out, but he looks, again, a great fit here. Cam Smith found some form last week. It's been sort of inconsistent, but a second top 10 on the year, first top 5. Lucas Herbert, 10 under on the last day. He's gone low a couple of times and been very close. It wouldn't surprise if he gets near there. It's the kind of golf course that suits Lucas as well. John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton were very good last week and consistently just there. And John Rahm, he's only missed the top 10 once since joining LIV, and that was because he withdrew.
It's just
19 events, top 10. So if you're doing something like, I don't know, maybe tipping things on a podcast and trying to get top 10s, I'd suggest John Rahm's a pretty safe bet.
Does everybody get one season-long top 10 that they can pick at the start of the year? And he's my top 10 player every single tournament.
We mentioned Bryson off the top as well. Regularly in contention, hasn't quite closed out, so it'd be interesting. And Brooks Koepka's probably worth keeping an eye on. Form really patchy, but that big major run will be getting a lot of work, and I'd suggest Brooks is doing quite a lot of practice away as he gets ready for that, and one day when he goes plays a LIV event, it'll click by accident and he'll win.
That whole team thing just does not suit him, does it?
Not at all.
He is a lone wolf and should always be a lone wolf.
Especially not captaining a team.
Yeah, doesn't want to have to look after others, don't want to have to be a part of others, no. But anyway, we need some tips, and I'm going to go with Tyrrell Hatton.
Oh, that was my tip last week. He top 5'd, I think,
Yeah,
didn't he?
he did.
So,
Yeah.
right. Tyrrell Corporation is always a decent pick.
Oh, you're sticking with Tom?
No, man.
Oh, me next. I'm going with Lucas.
Nice.
He's a momentum player. 10 under in the last round last Sunday. He's going to open with something blistering on Friday. They start, don't they? Yeah.
Player like that too, who's quite mercurial in that altitude of last week and the numbers and everything like that. Geez, that's a lot of work for a caddy. But anyway.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If someone's looking for a serious pick from me, I'll tell you, my thought about pick is John Rahm.
Okay.
But because I've painted myself into this corner with like a Korean theme for the week,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've looked at the sort of top, the Korean adjacent player who's, I think, in best form in LIV is Danny Lee. So,
Okay.
It's a big build-up.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure on Danny.
That was a bit of a stretch, that one.
There's quite a lot of the players who were here who actually played that 2015 Presidents Cup. Not Danny Lee, but Louis Oosthuizen, I believe, was the best performing player who's going to be in the field.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Oh.
On we go. And LPGA, fresh off a major, we've discussed plenty already. Head to the Black Desert Championship presented by Greater Zion. And Rod, you know all things about Black Deserts.
You'd have thought, wouldn't you?
I would hope.
You'd have hoped. All things is a long way off. Really, really interesting. First, let's start with Sponsor Watch, because Zion, of course, is kind of a loaded word, isn't it? You start thinking, so it's basically a tourism area in Utah. Like we have the Bellarine Peninsula.
Okay.
So the Zion Group is like the umbrella promotional organisation for what is a massive sort of tourist area in Utah, deserts and that sort of thing. The Black Desert Resort is they describe it as a $2 billion mega resort.
Casino?
Don't think so. Not in Utah, but it's a big deal. And they've put a lot of money into it. Again, this is Tom Weiskopf's last design. He actually died before it was completed and opened. This was his last design. Now, here's what I think is interesting. The PGA Tour played there in October. The LPGA are playing it. That's going to be a long-term deal, I suspect, because one of the reviews I read came from a pre-opening day. Somebody knew somebody and they went out and had a day. He reckon they were building permanent grandstands around some of the greens. Now, you only do that if you're planning to have a tournament there all the time. So it feels like this might be a pretty big commitment. That's an interesting... We haven't seen a lot of interesting sponsorship stuff in golf. That's actually an interesting sponsor. They are going to be on the calendar every year, twice, covering the whole golf market. So we welcome our new Black Desert overlords in this changing world of golf and turmoil. This is the first year of the tournament, obviously, because the course only opened last year. Not that you'd know it by looking at the pictures. It really does look... it's that postcard picture version of a golf course. No, that's I guess you'd sort of expect. The last event as a guide to sort of scoring and that kind of thing. I'm sure the LPGA will play it at a different yardage, obviously, to the PGA Tour. Matt McCarthy won it at 23 under. These sort of resort courses, you tend to find the pros do well. Big greens, wide fairways. Somebody's going to have a good week with the putter. That tends to be good. It is quite spectacular looking at place through a lava field. I don't remember watching the event there on the PGA Tour last week. It looks a bit like that Iceland, Hawaii kind of environment. You've got this black outcroppings of lava rocks and the green goes through it. Not a massive fan with how green this golf course is through there, but that effect can be fantastic. You see what they've got in Iceland. It's fantastic visually to have a look at. So it's quite stunning, spectacular. And in the background you've got those, mash type hills, the sort of the red hills overlooking. So visually it'll come out really well on TV. It looks to have lots of short grass around the green, so that's always encouraging. Get to see some interesting golf. Good field as always with the LPGA, but not super duper. Only 4 of the world's top 10 in the field this week. PGA Tour would be very happy if they had that this week, and that's a down week for all 5 of the participants in the playoff are backing up. Or actually, maybe Lindy Duncan is not, but certainly they're all there. So Ronnie Yin, Hyoji Kim, Aria, and Mao Saigo. You wonder whether any of them could possibly back up this week. Ronnie Yin, maybe. She's probably got the most motivation in that sense because she played really, really well, except for that one mistake in the playoff where she had that 3-putt. Possibly, but I would imagine all of them are feeling fairly flat after what was a really difficult week. We're missing, obviously, Lydia, Gino, Jin Young Ko, and others from the top 10. So let's not talk about who isn't there. Let's talk about who is. Feels like a week where sort of a lesser-known player might bob up, someone who's been on the fringes and that sort of thing. Putting those big names aside, I tell you, I like Angel Yin. They're not fringe players, but Angel Yin, this course will suit her. She's 10th in strokes gained this year. That's not really Angel Yin's game, I don't think, over that. She's been a much more inconsistent player. To be 10th in strokes gained when you're playing well each week, this would be her sort of course. It's wide, she hits it miles, and that'll be a huge help here. And the other one that I said on is Paddy Tavatanik. I kind of painted myself into a corner early in the year and said I think she's going to have a great year. She hasn't yet, but again, this is the sort of course that I think could really suit her. Lots of room to make a few mistakes off the tee because she likes to bash it out there, and short grass around the greens. We will see. Plenty of Australians in the field. Minjee Lee is playing. Hannah is not, but Minjee Lee is. So again, scheduling is becoming difficult for these players as well, particularly that mid-year point where you've got to go to France. And in the Olympic year, it was just a disaster getting from there to there to there. So they're problematic. But our usual, and we can just call them by first names now because that's how well we're doing. Steph, Grace, Gabby, Sarah Kemp and Hiron Naveed. Good to see Sarah Kemp back,
Yeah,
actually.
absolutely.
This will be a good week for her. It's a nice flat walk. It's not going to be too hard on the legs because I heard a terrific interview with her. Karen Harding, our old friend, had her on the T for Two podcast, Sarah. Just a lovely chat about one of our players who's been really, really good for a very long time.
Still definitely in recovery of that horrific double leg break.
No question. But just
the definition in her legs is different. She does struggle to walk around the golf course, but it's getting stronger. So
delightful interview. She's a great
one of the nicest people in world
100%.
golf, Kempy.
I still call her a kid because I remember covering the Australian Women's Open where she was the top amateur. That was at Terry Hills the year Katrina Matthew won.
I will note that your attempt at a pop culture reference earlier of MASH.
Oh.
The last episode of MASH aired 5 years before I was born. So that's how you're going in
and
terms
remains the single most watched episode of television
I love
in
MASH
history.
growing up.
Really? Was it more than the final episode of Seinfeld?
Yeah. Oh, it's got it covered
Yeah.
comfortably.
Anyway,
enough about all of that. As I said, feels like a league word, but I'm going to go with Paddy Tavakoni. Go on. Go, Paddy.
nice. Logue?
Okay. I'm going with, I'm in keeping with my Korean theme.
Love it.
World number 12, Hae Ran Yu.
Yeah.
Who
chip it on the
finished
last
last week. And, you know.
She's a really good player. I was really disappointed with
absolutely.
her, and that's 2 years in a row. She's led through the third round. There's maybe something there to overcome.
Yeah.
But she's a really good player, great golf swing. And
She knows how to win as well.
yeah, she's won
She has had a
once or
couple of
twice, I think, already.
I thought about staying with Esther Henselite, who's
Well, you've made it much harder for yourself with this German theme rather than Korean. He's got a buffet to select from.
I
You've
had
got
the Paul brothers last week, and it goes out. But
you've got Langer, Keimer, Henselite, and the
it's
Paul
not
twin.
good.
You might have to go to a German adjacent, like Schmetzel or someone.
Schmelzel.
Sarah
Schmelzel.
No, but I thought about it. But I'm going to give her the week off.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Bronnie Yin, who it's a lot to overcome what happened on Sunday, but she is a world-class player.
And best way to overcome it.
And I think we spoke about it last week, that she hadn't quite been there and she suddenly just went to that level.
Yeah.
Feels like she'll be there or thereabouts.
Just, can she forgive herself the unforgivable
well,
mistake?
that's what we're going to see.
Really difficult thing for a player to do. I hope she does.
Otherwise, I'm back to Team Germany.
Well, she's a good player and she's entertaining to watch. That's who you want playing.
Exactly.
You know, as he was saying about Ben Griffin before, you want players that are watchable, and she's watchable.
Absolutely. Now, we turn it over to you, Logue, and full tournament name warning, the 44th GS Caltex Maekyung Open Golf Championship.
Yeah. I like that they're leaning into putting the 44th
I
in the
really
title.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
They always have.
They always have, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the presidents.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. 44th hosting this 1982, I think, was the first one, if that adds up properly. I'm not sure. But most of the time it's been played at this golf course, Namsol Country Club, which started in 1971, was designed by a Japanese designer. It's an interesting looking course, very remote, sort of rugged area that it's in, mountainous terrain. It's not a bomb and gouge track. It's a real old-fashioned sort of narrow shot makers course where you've
Bomb and gouge is how they built it. Bomb out the rock, gouge some out and put a fairway in.
Exactly. That's nice work from you there.
I just came to. I thought I'd better let that out before I forget.
So it's going to favour players who can control their flight, hit fairways and scramble around the greens. It's going to be a little bit the temperature, I think you can expect pretty comfortable temperatures this time of year in Korea as well. It's just going to be a shot maker's course is what we'll see. The field, however, is not adorned with a bunch of big names. Oh, actually, one thing I want to mention, there has been an Australian winner of this tournament. Rod, I know you know who it is.
I know too. Mike Clayton, 1984.
1984. He won by
the year, but
one of the few years it wasn't played at Namsol, but he won by a single stroke at Gwanak Country Club. He's the lone Australian to have won it.
And New Zealand has won it too. Name him.
Bob Charles.
Eddie Lee.
There we go.
As an amateur.
you've really revealed your sort of generation there, Logue, that your go-to New Zealand player is Bob Charles, who I might be interviewing this week.
He might have played in it.
Yeah, but it started in
He would
'82.
have
It was
actually-
getting towards the end of Bob Charles
In the
winning too
twilight of
many
his
events.
career,
Yeah.
maybe.
Made the cut at the New Zealand Open at the age
I
of
remember having a
70-something.
conversation with Clates about winning this event. I don't think he remembers much of it, to be
Oh,
fair.
really?
Was there something about shoes? Did he have some weird shoes or something? There was something
There's-
weird. It was Clayton.
Yeah, there's some bizarre story to it
I wonder
that's
if it-
purely.
was it a
Clates.
European tour?
No.
No.
Back then it
No,
was
no,
Asian
no.
tour.
He played a bit in Asia early at that stage, yeah.
All right. Anyway, as you'd expect, there's a lot of Korean heavyweights in this tournament. Park Sang-hyun, who's won this twice in the past, I think. Bio Kim, one of my favourites, is there. And a number of others. Hong Tae Kim is the defending champion, and expect him to do pretty well again. You've got some Asian Tour stalwarts there, Jazz.
Jane Watton on.
Nice work.
I can spell it too, off by heart as well.
Very good. And, you know, a little bit of international interest as well. Kieran Vincent, Scott Vincent. Are they brothers?
They are indeed, yes.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
There's a lot of brothers around at the moment. Hoygaards, Pauls, Vincents.
And
I've got a brother.
I got a brother.
and some, I don't know, brother. Australians on the tee sheet, Trav Smythe, Maverick Antcliffe, Scott Hend, Aaron Wilkin, Jed Morgan, and Sydney's Jun Sok Lee, who now plays under the Korean flag, I think, although he mixes it up a little bit.
Kevin, I think he goes by Kevin when he's here.
Yeah, that's right.
Quickly.
And also Australian, worth noting, Ryan Peake makes his first
Oh, he
start
does
as an
too.
Asian Tour
Sorry.
member after winning the New Zealand Open.
Thank
So
you
good
for
luck to
pointing that
Peaky.
Indeed. So I guess we get on to picks. My pick is I'm going for the Korean again.
I was going to be shocked if you didn't because
Park Sang-hyun. Or Sang-hyun Park.
Sang-hyun Park,
Yes.
nice. I would be shocked if you didn't at an event
Yes.
that's pretty much exclusively won by Koreans.
He'll be going for his third victory.
Nice.
So
Rod?
we'll see how he goes.
So I'm lost with these fields where the Asian Tour, in Korea especially, where you've just got these massive lists of Korean players that you know nothing about. So you've got to go with somebody you know. And I like Bio Kim because
Bio Kim is.
Everyone likes
You know what?
Everybody
I don't
does.
think he's a good course fit, Bio Kim. This little bit of Bio Kim insight I can give you.
All right, well, I'm
is
gonna-
that. He's
I'll clip that
more of a
out.
bomb and gouge guy, and this isn't a bomb and gouge.
I'll clip that out and send it to him, and he can use that for inspiration for the week, as Jack Nicklaus did when Bob Drum rode him off before he won the Masters in '86.
Well, that shows your
similar
You're right as well.
levels there.
Yeah,
Logan, Bob Drum. Just
Logan, Rory McIlroy, Logan, Bob Drum. This guy's really making his way in the world of golf, Jimmy.
Yeah, that's
Star
true.
is rising.
now, I don't believe there's any Germans in the field.
So you don't have a tip.
So I'm out there, and it is. I would normally go for a Korean, but I've gone with a bit of just change it up differently, and I'm going to go with Thailand's Dantai Bunma.
Yep.
2 top 10s already this year. Played the Asian Development Tour last year. Really, really good player.
Okay.
And I just think
Well, we're about due too is the other thing.
Yeah.
The longer it goes where you've not had a non-Korean winner, the closer you are to the
Correct.
next non-Korean winner. So
Correct.
There's a
Yeah.
perfectly good strategy.
so. I think just to offer something a little bit different. So we'll see how that plays out. If not well, it'll never be mentioned ever again. That will just about do it for episode 110. Rod, you've got a newfound love or refound love of watching golf. How many updates from Namsol are we going to get out of you this week?
I think it was I'm only inspired by the bigger events, Jimmy. It tends to be on in the background otherwise, but I was watching. Well, the last hour of that women's event was just nuts.
Yeah.
The 3 days and a half days before it weren't particularly interesting, but the last hour was can't miss TV for all the wrong reasons. But it was definitely, and that's why I started texting and whatnot. But,
Logue, no majors, so no players to compare yourself to. Obviously, Bob Drum, you've already got. What tip would you give? One simple tip for Aria to overcome what happened with that chip?
Who's that guy on Instagram who everyone raves about with the chipping?
Joe Mayo.
Joe Mayo. Subscribe to Joe Mayo on
Yeah,
Instagram.
that's actually pretty good advice from you. I don't mind
I
that.
would think it's better than the bloke that was giving her advice while she was waiting for the playoff around the chipping green. That did not look like a good thing to be doing right at that moment.
The pressure you would have felt hitting the next approach shot to not miss the green is the next chip you know is going to be bad.
Yeah.
But setting up a shot where you have to hit the next chip, that's horrible.
Well, especially when you know before you start that you're going to have that exact same chip again. There is no way around it because that's the only shot you could hit at that 18th hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, you can keep up to date with all the action from these tournaments and more on the Golf Australia magazine website, golfaustralia.com.au, including the Thing About Golf podcast. Next guest, Rod, on the Thing About Golf?
David Ledbetter.
How good.
Huggy sat down with Dave Latham because Huggy used to write his instruction articles for a publication that we won't mention. It's not here in Australia.
I used to have the old David Ledbetter videos and DVDs as a kid.
Well, he talks about anything, and Huggy and I talked about it in the intro. He was probably the first of the superstar coaches.
He was,
really changed the industry, not just for himself, but for every coach of every level down, has increased the respect for golf coaches enormously.
Well, absolutely. Give that a listen. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week on Playing from the Tips.